And it was one of the things too that I just while we're talking about it, and I'll just put this, you know, as part of this conversation is one of the things I was telling Jessica about you and your poems is you need to wean yourself off of me. You need to. I mean, you have learned, for example, technically. A lot of the technical things. Chin too. You and Chin are very similar in poem. You're both strong with the enjambment. But for example, you know when you over alliterate something, you can tell if you read Jessica's best poems or my best poems. We don't over alliterate. There's a nice flow to it. Bad poets, you can tell they're adding in words just to get alliteration. It doesn't flow naturally. Similar with enjambment. When you have, say, a sonnet, 14 lines, and those lines maybe have 5 well enjambed lines that can be read as sentences, but also the lines can be read as individual lines. If you're just doing the lines to have a line that is a sentence unto itself, if it doesn't add to the poem, that's sort of like over alliteration. You need to, for example, get to the point where you have, you know, line 7 that says something that plays off of the main thrust of the poem, or the sentences that form the two halves of it, or not. Otherwise, it's just showing off. And I think I said to, I don't know if I wrote it to you, but I said it to Jessica. I said, one of the poems you sent recently reminded me of trying to be like W.B. Yeats, but written by Dan Schneider. And it's good to mix and match things like that. But now that you've learned the technique on it, and I said the same thing to Chin, is you've got to find who you are. You have to put a bit more emotion in it, but not in a melodramatic way. There are going to be things that only you have thought, only you have seen, only you have felt. Same thing as Chin, who lives in Singapore. It would seem to be a lot easier for him to do it since he's more quote unquote alien than you are to me. But that's one of the things that a lot of artists fail to do. And this is why when I talked about the person who failed in doing a book that he had written, it happens. And you know, when we talked about this privately, failure is not something that is that just, you know, how did that happen? Failure is what happens most of the time in life. You know, it's again getting back to when I read Jessica's book and she asked, "What do I need to do?" and what, and I said, "Jessica, this is about as perfect and great a book as you can get." And you know, 5 or 6 of her books out of the last 7, or maybe 1 or 2 of the books, there was a slight tweak that I told her to do, and whatnot. Uh, it's almost getting spoiled to read me or to read Jessica's books, because it's very difficult. And the person that we talked about who wrote this book is a very intelligent person who understands art and whatnot, but basically got off on one wrong foot, and that one little, instead of going straight ahead, going 2 feet to the left, it went off into disaster. And so it's a very difficult thing to do in art, and you shouldn't beat yourself up, or young artists should not beat themselves up if it takes time. But you have to be persistent. You have to commit to it, because if you don't, I talked about before the woman character that I based Stacey Stafford on. She spent a few years trying to be it, and then she sold out. She became an MFA hack, and now she's a scam artist who's trying to steal money from people. That's what happens, unfortunately. I'm not saying you're going to become a scam artist, but